Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with your charismatic host and prominent safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Be entertained and informed as the Safety Doc discusses both best and bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. The truth will keep you safe. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD.
Hi, everybody. This is David, and welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast. Last week, I interviewed Preston Rice of Madison Area Drone Service. He did a wonderful job talking about all kinds of different obscure but very interesting facts about drones. Things like, if you took your drone and you flew it up in the air, took a picture of your neighbor's property, maybe your neighbor wants to sell their house, and you charge them 25 cents for the image of the property that you took from up above. You can't do that as a hobbyist. That's against the laws. And there's like a multi-$1,000 fine that goes with that. So the difference between a hobbyist and a commercial pilot, I know Preston is one of just a handful of commercial pilots in the area, and the deep level of FAA type training that they need to go through. Absolutely amazing. And two, the fact that one of the drones he had was the size of my hand, and he said there's smaller ones. So I picked this thing up, and it's small, and it takes off. He can control it with a smartphone. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. It has like high def 4K camera on it. I don't even know what 4K is, but I know it's better than, the high definition televisions, which are out there right now. So absolutely phenomenal. So podcast 41 today will be part 2 of 2 with Preston Rice, and we're going to center that discussion more on search and rescue and disaster response, how drones fit into that. So how drones can be deployed, for example, to create a mobile hotspot. So maybe it's someplace where the cellular system has gone down, or there isn't a very robust cellular system. You could actually take, 100 drones the size of, again, my hand. They could deploy and act as one network and serve as a temporary cellular network. Absolutely incredible. We're going to talk about different parts of, for example, looking at 9/11 in retrospect, and if drones were available for some type of modern day Sentinel event, what that might look like as far as like bringing in materials. One thing Preston will talk about is a lot of areas might have chemicals clouds or could be some radioactivity or something like that, where it's not safe for people to enter, but yet you could bring a drone in and out of that area. So amazing stuff he's going to talk about. This is the future of safety, folks. It's the future of safety is the interface with drones, and the interface with machine learning, artificial intelligence, how all this is going to come in, where once we have a Sentinel event in the future, the very near future, it's going to be significantly different than what it was on September 11, 2001 or before, because what we're going to be able to bring to this, and it's going to be commonplace. Like every fire department is going to have a drone or a few drones. They use these right now. I did some, again, internet, some research and found the drones are being used by the forest department to find out where the hotspots are in forest fires. So they fly the drone over, it does the heat signatures, and then they can pinpoint where to focus the firefighting. But just so many ways, farmers using drones to identify crops. But if you did have a disaster, how you could take a fleet of drones, and we talked about the Joplin, Missouri tornado, and how that had been just devastated this large area, and I think only one fire department was left standing intact, and eventually they prioritized. I mean, they did a nice job with doing their prioritization, and got to the hospital with some of the equipment that they had, but whatever. Looking at if that were to happen today, whether it was day or night, I mean, obviously once the storm had passed, but you could take a drone, a fleet of drones, identify a quadrant, And drones could go out and do heat signatures. They could do images. And within literally, maybe a half hour, you'd have these monitors. You could be watching things. You could have several square miles of information, and you would know exactly where to deploy. And if you had areas that were very population dense, like a hospital or a school or something like that, you could get in there and get very detailed information. And also that drone could set up, like a hotspot communication in that area. It's phenomenal just to think. But it's going to take rescue in a whole different direction. It's going to take rescue from, like maybe 15 hours to do something like that. This typical like search of this area, just to get kind of a idea of what the depth of the damage is. 15 hours down to, maybe 15 to 30 minutes to get those images back, very high def images. And we're not talking from, necessarily 400 feet up. I mean, we're talking you can bring that, much, much closer down, and the sharpness of those cameras, and get very vivid images, plus, the heat signatures and things like that. It's awesome. It is absolutely incredible. We're going to talk much more about that during this podcast. We actually went out in the field and did some demos. So you're going to hear me, and you're going to hear actually, the takeoff and the buzzing. It sounds like a whole bunch of mosquitoes, which in Wisconsin, you don't want to hear that sound, but it's what it sounds like. And you're going to hear Preston and I speaking, and I'm going to narrate over top of that to tell you what's going on, because at one point he actually sets up his drone on a field and then has it take off and fly out about a mile, and then it's stationary and does a radius. And it searches this radius of maybe, 80 feet or something like that, in very, intense mode. And then again, looking at a screen, you'd be able to exactly see what was there. So if somebody was lost, you'd be able to search in these areas. And the area he flies over is really swampy. So like if you were to go out, even, with dogs and so forth, it would be very tedious to get through these areas. So he just flies over. And again, I'll narrate that. This is on YouTube, as part 1 is also on YouTube. So I urge you to go onto YouTube and watch these. You can see the whole experience, because we do have some different footage that we shot actually from the drone, one of the drones. I had my tripod and camera up, and then I was using my phone to record some other things. So we have some different angles on some of this stuff too, but just the quick capability. I was so amazed at the speed, the absolute speed of these drones. It just completely blew me away. And Preston was saying that the new drones, can go like 70 miles an hour, that they can maintain that speed for, a short period of time. So if you're looking at, if it's a police chase or something like that, but even to get to an area, an emergency, there's so many uses where drones are going to come in. And that's a big part of this show, is we talk a lot about what the future of rescue, the future of safety is going to look like, because what tends to happen is we benchmark to the past. We say, well, this is what happened for communication at the World Trade Center in 2001. This was the Murrah building. Like, there was a study I talked about that was done on that. And we just benchmark things to the past. The movie Dunkirk came out, great movie, but, people will benchmark and take the World Trade Center harbor rescue of 500,000 people against the Dunkirk rescue, which, was arguably like 350,000 soldiers, somewhere in that range. And, it's interesting to do that, but we are entering a whole different realm right now. Again, just think of the fact that you could have at any beach, you literally could have a drone, that would be available to the lifeguard. And the first thing, it probably, that lifeguard, or if you had a team of lifeguards, like the beaches in my town, there's typically a team of lifeguards, but imagine that you had a drone that you could deploy, that, you could quickly fly out and it could drop a life buoy as someone else is going out there to get to somebody. And especially, I know I vacation up in like the Great Lakes area and Superior and things like that. But I mean, anybody is caught in like a rip current out there, that often is fatal. But if you're able to, have that technology that's available and get things out there in, in time. But it is absolutely amazing. It's exciting. It's affordable. We have people like Preston who are dedicated to this and bringing this technology forward in so many ways. And I remember just here in closing, I talked about it before. We had this bridge in my hometown. It was one of these steel structure bridges built in the 30s, so it had all of the steel beams up above, and yeah, I mean, it was pretty antiquated by the time it was replaced in the 90s. So it was held up literally by timbers underneath and stuff. But this bridge was decaying. So, but if you had a drone, you'd be able to go in and to do surveillance of this bridge in pretty fast manner and identify some of the most serious areas where then you need to get somebody to. And of course, Preston talks about things like these wind turbines, where to send somebody up is time intensive plus is risky. Or if you're to take a plane, a small plane, well then you have to pay for the fuel and everything like that, and try to navigate around and get photos. Where if you just had the drone. So I'm really excited, and it's actually become something now I'm going to look much deeper in and try to include a little bit more as this field develops in safety of what this looks like, and maybe talk to the local fire department and ask if they have a drone, or if they don't have a drone, if they're considering getting one, and how they think that they would use that drone. That's actually going to be a discussion I think I'm probably going to have. So. What also surprised me was, you think it's really easy to use a drone, and it's not. There's quite a learning curve that goes with it, as you can tell from the interface that comes up on the screen in the first episode off of the smartphone. So you really need to know what you're doing, and it is GPS connected. So I mean, it does get 17, 18 satellite signals to always tell it where it is and things like that. But it is something that you do need some training in and need to learn those skills. But amazing hobby, and then also the commercial uses for these things. It's just going to be unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And then we come into safety here on the Safety Doc Show of just what it means. Early on, when I started this show, less than a year ago, I had Jennifer Fritton on, and we talked about search and rescue with her dog Serenade. And just from that to listening to the capability of search and rescue with Preston seems like the interview I did with Jennifer should have been like 10 or 15 years ago, because of the advances in this technology. And certainly there are some things which a drone isn't going to be able to do, go into like a heavily wooded area and things like this. But the technology is advancing. It's exciting, folks. It's exciting. And again, do I mow my lawn a little bit higher to preserve a little more space of my own that the FAA can't get into? I don't know. But I kind of like it. I like it short, like a golf course. I don't water it though. But anyway, welcome back. Hey, Safety Doc, thank you for 41 wonderful episodes. And let's get right into show number 2, part 2 with Preston Rice. We're going to focus here on rescue and the capabilities looking forward for drones specific to safety. Thank you very much for listening to the Safety Doc Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
Packaging. So if I order something off Amazon, my 10, 12-pound gummy bear.
That's right. When is it going to be delivered by drone? I want that gummy bear delivered by drone.
Yeah.
Why is it not yet?
I hit it, there's part of me which is still in disbelief that can actually happen. That this is we're going to see this, or the Pizza Hut is going to, you're going to place your order, and the drone will come down with a little Pizza Hut hat on top of it, and you've already made your transaction or whatever, and you take delivery. But these things will happen. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Tell me, I guess, how close are we? Or are there pilots?
Sure. Well,
are these things happening already? Or
yeah, I mean, right now, if we had pizza delivered by drone, it might land on our roof. We're still trying to work out the kinks.
I would be willing to get the ladder out and get it. So yeah.
But they are pushing forward, and because if we look at it from a logistical level, it is more efficient to use a small aircraft. We're not burning fuel. We're not polluting directly by the drone itself flying. We're able to send it out faster and more specifically for one individual person. So the reason for doing it is good. There are some setbacks right now, and a lot of this again has to do with airspace. And
yes.
one of the major rules that we have right now is that we do not fly beyond line of sight. So what this means is us as an operator, we have to always maintain that visual on that drone. So if we are allowing a network or a system to operate these automatically, we have to have systems in place that are able to eliminate that, and we still know that they can operate safely. So I think that is a big hurdle right now in these automated deliveries and so on, is making sure that we can have systems in place, they work safely enough to work on their own without us having to babysit them as they work. And I also think that the ADSB, that pilot system that works into these, that I think has also a big impact on this potential delivery. I think if they can prove that it's safe enough, they can equip all of them with ADSB so we can control their point in airspace. I think the possibility of that going forward is much better. It's actually, at this point, Amazon is already developing drones. They already have them produced. They're working on their centers where they want them to exit and fly out of. They're already working on this because they're so confident that this will be available to us in the future. They're ahead of the game, but they want to make sure when they get the approval, they're ready to rock and roll.
Wow, it's amazing to think how that is going to revolutionize delivery, and but it's fascinating, and I'm blown away by that. I can imagine if I was a kid today, or if I was a kid 20 years from now, and the Pizza Hut is delivering the pizza. Yeah, I would probably be waiting outside for that drone to go up and see if there was any way we could do wait if there was a pizza that slipped off or something like that, and hey, there it is. But wow, it is amazing, the capability, and we talked again today about the safety aspects of how drones are going to interface, and especially, you brought up the rescues, and I'm thinking, national parks, but even like, storms that come through, and it's pretty common when I talk to Jennifer Fritton with the search and rescue dog too, of getting calls of someone with dementia who has wandered, or a child with autism, and then the means of these rescues are very complicated, and as you indicated, introducing a drone to that, or a few drones with and also with a very specific if there's the ability to detect heat signature or something like that, how efficient that process can be, which isn't there, at the moment on large scale. It still is convening, the search and rescue, because I did that interview less than a year with her. So wow, it's fascinating.
And the military is actually actively using small aircraft that are remotely piloted right now, in addition to the ones that we know of, that we knew about 10 years ago, the Predator drones, the large, were being manned, but those are massive aircraft. But they actually are using, and have been using, very small ones as well. There's one that's called the, I forgot what it's called, the RQ-11B Raven.
Okay.
This is a small aircraft that the military has been using for a while now. It's actually a fixed-wing aircraft, but it's something that they developed to be deployed by a soldier real quick for quick reconnaissance, and be able to fly silently and cover a certain amount of area, check for a survivor or something. So they are using this particular aircraft already, and I know that they have in development also other multi-rotor, what we would consider drone-like products being made for their assistance as well. So the military is very well involved in this right now and realizing the importance of it. There was also another test they did recently. They flew an FA-18 fighter out. I think this was over California where they did the test at, but they dropped what was basically a swarm of drones. Just dropped it out like they'd be dropping a bomb, and they deployed out, and as they began to fall, they became aware of where they were at by GPS and where the other one was at, networked, and they spread out and they formed basically a perfect swarm. And so they can go and form a formation and go to a certain location, and they're using this network of drones that can be deployed on demand to provide a certain task, whatever that may be. So they most certainly are being used, and I think in the future they will just be used more and more.
So, yeah, for me, I'm very intrigued as far as the hobby aspect of drones and the appreciation of what commercial drones bring to the efficiency of commerce, and also what we have for rescue. I'm just thinking, fire trucks when they go out, it's going to be common and standard for fire trucks to have a drone unit that would be on the truck, and it's going to probably be that way for police.
Yeah,
and just in general that'll be part of your training, is you'll be taking your course. And by the way, here's how we used to train for this, but now this is the new introduction of the training of technology. And wow, it's fascinating and so exciting, because I think it adds, you GPS, where things are at. Like you said, you can expose to radiation, to maybe toxic areas that you couldn't, or it definitely would present a risk to bringing a human into that environment. Wow, I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to be doing more research into this area. I've been working with some researchers around the world, actually, who are looking at the interface of artificial intelligence and rescue. And this is something where few people have really gotten into. Very interesting that people will take current disasters and they tend to benchmark them back to previous disasters. Like there was a recent study that came out, I think it was 2014. Disaster experts analyzed the rescue at 9/11, the World Trade Center, just at the towers, not the entire.
Right.
But and they took it against the Murrah building, and I looked at that and said, boy, there's so many variables which are completely different from a technology standpoint that I don't think that comparison backwards makes sense. I think to try to make the comparison forward, and they just launched the USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier with the rail guns for launching, or the rail platform, the electromagnet. And one of the things is there are many open spaces in the bridge of the Gerald Ford, and the reason is it's for the technology which has yet to be invented. So it's for the stuff that'll be there 30 years from now, because it has, they expect 50, 60 years easily out of this aircraft carrier, and so they're saying this is where this will be, and even some other military craft which are being developed and saying, here's why this is intentionally, there's nothing there right now, but here's what will be there probably in 15 years. Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing. And I know, too, the NASA, and I've had communication with a researcher out of NASA who works with flight pilots and also with Navy pilots in some of like the pseudo Top Gun pilot areas. And they're getting to a threshold right now where very soon they're going to cross over where it's not going to be feasible to, quote unquote, man an aircraft anymore, because of how the situational awareness, how fast you have to process what's coming in, and all of that. And that's one of the things this researcher had told me, who's done this for his entire career, is that these subtle changes and these quick changes, and even with the systems, and then having someone trying to process that, it's getting to be too much. So you can augment that. But yeah, I think this is a technology which is proving. It doesn't mean, again, like you're completely separated from the technology, that there isn't somebody involved, but it might not be somebody like right there within that craft.
Right. I think in the future the separation between the human control is going to occur. There will be some thing there. And of course I can already think right now everybody's thinking about the Terminator now, the Terminator movies where
Right.
the technology is going to think on its own and take over. And I mean, who knows? But the fact is that separation and trusting the intelligence of these things there is a lot of good that can be done from that. We just need to make sure that we can control them in the end. Because in reality, artificial intelligence, like you were saying, it's getting pretty good. But there's really good reasons why we could use that. We need that to supplement things that, us as a human being, we fall short on. We just can't think of things fast enough in some situations, or we're blinded by the shock of a certain event, that we need that assistance to help out.
Right. You brought up another great point, and that's, something like this doesn't experience the emotional fatigue or the emotional reaction. One of the things I do is I'm also a county debriefer, so I'll work with fire, EMS, police after traumatic events, but you're not, having to debrief a drone. I mean, a drone, it of course isn't sentient. It's not going to have that ability to be influenced and have to work through that emotional component, which is really tough for first responders, and that fatigue factor. 9/11 was a good example, but even responding to fires and so forth, the fatigue, once you have all of the gear on and so forth, there is this point where you start to go down, with how effective you are, just as with the search and rescue dogs and just everything else. And really, you don't get to that point with a drone until you maintain your effectiveness until you do get to a point where the battery is depleted, and then you'd have to come back and then either get put a new battery in, and you could be back out. It's not like you have to take someone out of service as a human and maybe rest them for 8 hours and then bring them back in. So it's amazing. I'm excited. This is phenomenal to see. I never thought you could have a drone that would be so small. I mean, even the larger one, which you're showing, which is maybe about 18 inches by 18 inches,
and that's relatively small. It's about 6.5 pounds or so, and there are ones that far exceed that.
and so yeah, that would have been my first takeaway too, is I was expecting just something much larger, and the fact that they're smaller is just really cool, because you can just have it in a little pack, and it can come with you, and then just all of the neat commercial uses. And
as that gets smaller, we'll move into, like the nano drones, things that are literally the size of a fly. And if you can imagine, if you needed to spy on maybe a government official or something, you had some really specific tasks, you could buzz something in that's the size of a fly and nobody would even know. I know it would probably freak somebody out to know that could exist, but, again, it's the positive use of it. Having something that small that can do a certain task, there's all sorts of reasons as to why that could be important.
Well, they had the Oroville Dam in California, 700 feet high. I think it's the tallest dam in the U.S. And they extensively used drones once the spillway started to collapse, and they had to get in and really understand what was going on. And there wasn't a way to do that outside of the Department of Water Resources with California deployed their drone force. And they made public their drone footage of what was happening, and then they used it to plan out what they needed to do, and then also they show it now to the public. They'll have regular updates every few days. You can go in Oroville Dam, you just type it in the DWR, and that'll be going on for the next couple of years as they repair the spillway, and they have someone that does right from the top all the way down to the bottom, and they pull away, and I think that also shows a part of transparency to the public, which, if you just had a few snapshots, it's like, well, what were they taking pictures of that they wanted us to see versus not wanted us to see? There's a certain immediacy and transparency. And one of the things I've found in my research in safety too is people seem to get most anxious about safety if they're not informed. If you give people information that does a ton, even if it's information that's not positive news for them, like, we've had the drone, we took this picture, and yes, the situation is very dire of this dam or whatever. Well, at least people feel that they have the information.
Yeah.
And it's that unknown.
Thank you for tuning in to the Safety Doc Podcast with the nation's leading safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin, Author, radio show host, university instructor, researcher, expert witness, and consultant. Powerful testimonials. Dr. Perrodin has a strong reputation as the go-to safety consultant, and he was still able to exceed our expectations. When we went looking for an expert in the field of crisis preparedness and prevention, David was the single person we pursued. Not easy stepping into the touchier subjects of life, but Dr. David pulls it off. Take a listen. Now, back to Dr. David Perrodin and the Safety Doc Podcast.
On a scale of a 9/11 or, some kind of disaster like that, or if there's some, large-scale natural disaster like an earthquake, what is going to be provided through a drone or through multiple drones and then shared out, and then someone interpreting that information just does so much to put people's mind at ease.
Yeah. And then, what's funny is that I found that people that are seeing a drone in flight, for example, and they don't have it available to them, I've noticed people tend to have almost like a drone anxiety.
Yeah.
People will see one flying and go, what is he doing? Like, is he looking at me? And it's funny, even myself that I fly all the time, I'm even a little caught off guard when I see a drone flying. My first thought is, well, what are they looking at? But we need to calm ourselves down and realize that not all these drones are out spying on people. They're not trying to do bad things with them all the time. That they are up there. Yes, they do have cameras on them in most cases, but the chances are they probably don't want anything to do with you. There's just this anxiety that exists currently that people just don't really know what's happening, and that bugs them. And it's funny because there was another story I've heard about with people in conversations. When a person walks in on a conversation of, say, two people talking, like you and me, they almost zone them out. They're not too concerned about what they're saying, and you may notice this, though, what happens when you walk into a room where somebody's on their cell phone talking by themselves, you're glued right to them. You want to know what's going on, right? It's because you don't know that other end of it. It's this human curiosity. We want to know what's happening on that other end. And that kind of goes into the drones as well. We see them flying, but we don't know why they're flying, and it makes some of us anxious. Some people literally have fear of these drones because they just don't know either enough about them or what they're doing. So I think getting the word out there and making people aware of what they do and how they operate and the good that they do will certainly help people understand the importance of them and why that's a good thing as well.
And I think, too, it's how does it work with as we wrap up? I want to put this question out because this is going to happen. If there's a school intruder situation or a school lockdown, the news stations typically will converge on those sites because those are very news capturing things. But can a news station they get so far, then it's police taped off. And all of a sudden, they want to get a shot, an aerial of the school, and to see what's going on. Can they go up with a drone and go over? It's like, or no way. Like once that police line's up, you better not do that.
Right. Well, right now, the general rule of thumb is if there's an emergency situation going on, if you are not directly involved in that, you should not be near it. And that includes a news station as far as them intruding into it. Another great example would be like a forest fire, for example. There have been people that have operated drones near forest fires and gotten in a lot of trouble because what's happening is they just want to get a shot, but they don't realize that there's helicopters coming in and out to deliver water, for example, and now they're causing a hazard in the airspace. So we need to understand that by us being a part of a critical situation that we may be causing an issue. So basically, if you are not directly involved in it, you really should not be active, at least without prior approval. If there's like a long standoff of some kind, maybe a news station contacts the police and says, hey, we can get a little overshot and we'll have the media to share with the public so they know what's going on. So there may be situations where that's okay, but in general, if something's going on, if you're not involved in that, you really should understand where you're allowed to be. And it's no different than anything else. If there's a bank robbery going on and there's cops out there with guns trying to control it, you're not going to be the lone hero. I'll take care of it, so the same idea.
Wow.
It extends to the drones as well. It's self-responsibility. Again, rule number one, common sense before anything else should apply to using these.
They all said, yeah, my initial reaction to a drone is skepticism. I'm not sure why it's up there. And also, they said, I'm like, have you seen drones a lot? And people have said, not really. Like as much as drones are out there, it's not like every day. And that's one of the things I noted too when I was up in Duluth and Canal Park is this drone had been positioned probably for quite an amount of time, watching and getting this incredible video of this freighter coming in, and I had totally not noticed it until someone had specifically pointed out, and then it was like, okay, I can understand why that's there and so forth. So yeah, I appreciate your time today. Your work sounds amazing, and it sounds like every day there's new opportunities
Definitely
that open up for what your service is going to match, and someone's going to say, boy, this would be great if I used a drone for
blank.
Yeah, versus a traditional way of doing this, and who knows what develops. And I'm excited for this. This was a big area I didn't know anything about. I feel like I know a whole bunch
That's
about
good.
it. Yeah. Now, at least like starting points that I can go in and get more information.
Right.
And I'm left with, the fact of the amount of technology that's built into these too, like this whole thing of, well, if you lose communication with one, it does have its own, program and process to handle that. It just doesn't suddenly fall out of the sky. And that the technology gets better where they can, interact, identify, that the videos are only, they're one, component that you can use for this. But again, you could also use it for delivery of some things and stuff like that. But wow, it's amazing. I'm excited. And I hope, the people today, if they have any questions, I'll have Preston's contact information readily available on the blog post, also just in the description for this show. That'll be available. They can contact you or else contact me too, and I can direct them over. So again, Preston, thank you so much today, and looking forward to what drones bring to all of us just for the betterment of life, and then also what drones bring to safety.
Well, thank you. I had a good time on the show, and hopefully I helped educate people on drones as they are today, so I think it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you having me.
So right now Preston is in setup mode. We are out here on location, and I'm just going to pan a little bit. We've got a field and a marsh back there, and as Preston indicated, this takes sometimes up to like 30 minutes to put everything together.
No, I meant from the total.
Oh, all right.
Total flight. It'll take me a few minutes to set this one up. Some of the drones I have are literally out of the case and they're ready to go. This one takes a little bit more work to set up, but not by a whole lot. So right now what I'm doing is just putting on the props. They are a quick release style, so they basically just snap on. And just like any aircraft, we're prepping it for flight. We're making sure that the systems are in check. We don't have any loose screws. Our propellers are all attached firmly. We have a battery that's been fully charged.
So do you need to lubricate those at all with any special Teflon lubricant or anything? No? Okay.
I mean, after you're talking maybe like over 100 hours, there may be things that we'll want to start looking at. It is possible for the bearings to go bad in the motors, or for like the pivots here to need lubrication, but it's more typical if you're near a coastline with salt water and things like that are more destructive on the parts. So right now, this is the DJI Inspire 1, and taking it out of the box like I have, it's basically in travel mode, which means it's flat so that it could fit in the case. So what I'm going to do is power it up, the transmitter and the Inspire, and I will take it out of travel mode so that I can put the camera on it. Usually a lot easier when we're on pavement rather than grass, so we're not fighting what's underneath it. Help it out a bit so it doesn't get stuck. Turn it off so that I can put the camera on. And it's cloudy today, so I'm actually going to switch out this filter. This is an ND filter, similar to what you would use on any camera. ND filter is basically just kind of like wearing sunglasses for
Okay.
the camera. And it is also polarized and has an anti-reflective coating, so basically it just allows me to produce a better picture out of what I'm shooting.
So right now, Preston is assembling this drone. So we are out in a field, and about 200 yards out, it enters into a swamp area. So he's going to fly this drone over the swamp area. Again, right now, he's putting this together on a single charge. This drone will fly for about 12 to 15 minutes. It can go really high. I don't know, like a mile high. He can go several miles out. He can be stationary, zoom in on an area. It's amazing.
The last time I flew, there may have been some bugs in there, so let's get those off the lens.
So there's a lot of work that goes into kind of pre-flight, getting this ready. So he's checking over the lens, checking over his battery connections, making sure the rotors are connected tightly. So yeah, it does have this time maybe of 5 to 8 minutes, where it's a full setup for the drone. He's unpacking it out of its case. But still, I mean, think of a search and rescue. That's not much time at all. Wow, this is amazing.
So that camera records in, is it 4K?
It can record up to 4K.
Okay.
I typically shoot in 1080, which is basically full HD, and I do that because that allows me to shoot at 60 frames per second on this particular model. So if I'm shooting at 4K, I'm limited to right around 30 frames per second, and the higher frame rate yields a smoother picture, so that's typically what I like to do with this case.
Oh, sure.
There are drones now that are being produced that will shoot at 4K at a higher frame rate than this can right now. So the next thing I need to do is hook up my mobile device, which I typically use an iPad because it's larger, but I'm going to be using my phone today so that I can capture the screen recording so that we can see how the application interfaces with the aircraft. And this is where I will see everything, the aircraft data, the battery level, everything that basically needs and sees will show up on here.
So you can go to the Safety Doc YouTube channel and watch this on YouTube and see what is going on right now. Preston is hooking up the drone command center. It is phenomenal. Check this out, Safety Doc on YouTube, so you can see what I'm talking about.
And then this charges through a USB port or special battery charger? How does that work?
Are you referring to the battery for the aircraft or both?
Probably for both.
Yeah, they have basically a charger that's unique to them, and so the battery has its own connection that it charges through, and that same charger has a port for the transmitter right here. And basically it will charge the battery until it's completely charged, at which point it shuts off. So it's all automated and it's smart in terms of its ability to charge the battery.
So again, we are in a city park right now, located maybe about 2-3 miles from our city airport, and Preston is getting ready to fly this drone.
That drone will operate at speeds up to 30, maybe 40 miles an hour, but there are newer versions which can go highway speed.
Yeah, this one's actually rated up to right around 50 miles per hour. As they've updated the firmware through the years, they've kind of slowed it down a little bit.
Okay.
Due to various reasons for that, but yes, the newer ones now are approaching 70 miles per hour pretty
my
easily.
Goodness.
And we're talking forward flight, not counting if you were riding a tailwind or gaining some other speed that way. Well, at this point, I'll turn it on, and what you'll see is this camera down here is basically going to do a self-check on startup. So it spins around and checks for its center location.
So right now the drone is sitting on its plastic case, and the camera is turning around. It's getting its orientation, and this drone is going to be taking off.
It's like, hey, who are these two guys? Attack! No,
Right.
no.
The AI is taking... Here. So at this point I'm recording so we can see what is happening on here. So, this is something that you can bring up on the screen so we can see better what I'm looking at. But basically my mobile device is connected to the remote is connected to the aircraft, and it forwards everything that I need to know right to this screen right here. There is an application that we download that is specific to this product line, and that's what we are using to interface with this aircraft.
This is all available on the YouTube version of the Safety Doc podcast. The drone is preparing.
I'm hoping this works because this is a new phone and I've yet to test it with with the software. Sometimes with the Android devices you have the USB, it doesn't forward stuff correctly. So like right now it's not showing up when it should be. I've had this problem before though, so let me start over and see if I can pull it up. So I'm just going to do what I did again. If that doesn't work, I'll have to use the iPad, in which case we won't have the overlay, which would be unfortunate. But
So the drone is made of plastic, or is there some type of other composite that it's made out of?
well, yeah, I mean, what you're seeing here in white is mostly plastic. The whole gimbal and even this piece of white here is aluminum. These beams are carbon fiber, which is very lightweight and very strong. The inner framework here, a lot of that is aluminum, so it's kind of a hybrid of different components depending on what it's being used for.
I was amazed at just how technical the controller was.
All right, let's see if it connects this time. It's usually not this difficult. Again, just I haven't used this phone yet, so if it takes, that'd be great.
So one thing Preston and I talked about afterwards is there's a learning curve with the drone, definitely, and getting familiar with it, and there's a panic that can come in if you have a new drone, you're flying it, and you're a novice, and all of a sudden you lose contact with it.
There we go.
All right.
Again, he is working to get this drone so it links up with his smart device, and then he's going to control it right from his smart device. It should start up momentarily. But again, there's a learning curve to this, folks. It's much more complicated than what it looks like. It's a fun hobby, but hey, it's going to take some time to learn it.
All right, looks like we're live on the screen.
I was thinking, oh my goodness, don't hand the controller to me.
So what I do before I fly is I check the status bar, which is on the top here. I check to make sure that everything is good to go. In this case, the aircraft is actually due for a firmware update. It won't affect the safety of the flight today, but it's something that I will do later on. But what is important is that we calibrate the compass.
Okay.
The compass is directly responsible for the GPS location. So basically the GPS says, I'm here, and let's say the wind blows me 2 feet this way. It's the compass's job to say, I need to get back that way, and that's where that position hold is taking effect. So if the compass is not accurate, neither is the GPS.
Gotcha.
So we always calibrate the compass before any flight. So I'm going to head out here where I'm away from other electronic devices.
So Preston is walking about 15 feet away from me.
This way so we can see where I start. So this is always fun because you typically get some good looks when you do this. So we hit OK to calibrate. And what I have to do is rotate 360 degrees.
So right now he is standing up with the device and he is just turning in a circle, turning in a complete circle.
And I will face it down, rotate 360 again. Sometimes you have to go just a little bit fast. We're now calibrated.
And that is the way to prepare the drone so it recognizes where it's at and also that it identifies itself to 17, 18 satellites.
At this point we're ready to fly, so I'll go ahead and take off.
Okay. So a little more setup to this than what I think people in general would think, with the need to calibrate and...
Right. Yep, the calibration is really important. That's one of the biggest reasons why drones end up crashing or going out of control is because they either skip that step or they don't do it properly.
That's the sound of the engine. Sounds like a whole bunch of kind of mosquitoes or bees or whatever it could be, but right now that drone is hovering about
So at this point I've just taken
7
off.
feet.
It's keeping itself steady where it's at.
7 feet off the ground.
The GPS is basically holding the position. It's usually accurate within about a foot or two, but really depends on how windy it is and whether or not the GPS lock is very good. At this point I'm actually connected to 17 satellites.
Oh my goodness. Okay, 17 satellites.
Yeah, this particular aircraft, let me back away a bit so we can hear. This is able to acquire signals not only from the satellites that the United States uses, but it also can connect to GLONASS, which is basically the Russian satellite network. So we're using two networks of satellites, and we get a lot better signal as a result.
So the drone is hovering about 7 to 8 feet off the ground, maybe about 25 feet away.
So at this point I'm ready to fly. So what I'll do is I'll take the landing gear and bring it up, which basically positions the battery on the bottom, or I'm sorry, the camera on the bottom. So now we can see the camera is the lowest piece on the craft, and that's so that when I'm flying, the camera cannot be picking up on anything on the aircraft like the props that would get in the way. So at this point we can really see how well the gimbal works. So if I rock it like so, let me get the camera pointing towards us. So what we can see is what I'm seeing, and I'll rock this.
So right now the drone is rocking back and forth, just like a cradle, and the camera is staying steady. The drone's electronics are keeping that camera steady.
So that's really the beauty of these, is you can fly the aircraft the way you want and still get a really steady picture. At this point I'm ready to take off, so we'll do a little bit of flying around here, and then we'll go into some of the smart features and take a look at the fail-safes.
So right now it's ascended maybe up to almost 100 feet.
So keeping in mind that the FAA wants us to keep this in line of sight, but the actual capability of the aircraft is literally several miles. We could fly this if we had a good connection.
So right now go on YouTube and you can see this. You can see what's happening.
Again, if I stop in midair, we can see it just hangs there and waits for me to do what I want to do next. Now I am able to override the GPS, so for example, if I switch off the GPS, which I'm going to do right now, you can see it'll start to drift, and what the drift that's occurring right now is due to the wind. So that is what the GPS is actually accounting for when it's flying normally and using that to hold its position steady. So that if I flip it back on, we stop. And that is basically what the GPS is doing to keep it going in the direction or keep it fixed where you want it to be.
Wow.
At the same time, if I want to go forward, you can see the line that it's tracking is perfectly forward. It's not really drifting off left or right, and again, it's using that GPS to maintain its heading, along with the compass and everything else that it needs to maintain that.
Drone is a few hundred feet away from us right now, folks. It's up in the air, and it is moving around smoothly, seamlessly.
The application data that's available to me is very sophisticated, so we can actually see, if we look on here, not only do we have the camera view, which we're looking at, but in the bottom left-hand corner here we have the map, which is tied to Google Maps. And if I bring that up...
Again, go online, check this out on YouTube, and you can actually see what is going on with you.
So we can actually see our position according to the map data that's available around here. So it knows where it's at. It actually pulls this data from an online source. So if you aren't connected to a cellular network or you don't have a Wi-Fi signal, the map won't be populated. You'll just simply see where the aircraft has been and where it is now.
Drone is hovering a few hundred feet above us.
So in addition to this, I can also go into other various information portions of this app. Right here that I'm looking at is the battery data, so we can see the cell voltage of each individual cell. We can see the temperature of it. We can see the battery life remaining. It's very important to check on that once in a while. It's basically like flying an airplane. We need to make sure how much gas is left in it.
Yes.
But we don't always have to go in that to see. At the very top of this application, we can see a bar that runs across. And what that bar is, where it's green, going to yellow, and going to red, that is keeping track of how much battery is remaining left in this. And it's smart because it knows how much it needs to get back to the home point, which is here. When we took off, it took a GPS coordinate saying that this was our home point. So it will return back to home when it needs to, when the battery is low enough that it deems necessary to come back. So if I were to fly, 1,000 feet out and let it hang there, it would end up returning to home faster than if it was just sitting right here because it knows it needs that time to bring itself back. At the same time, these fail-safes that are built in, this return to home, I could force it into return to home, or if literally the controller were to fail or to simply turn it off, the aircraft would realize that, go into fail-safe mode, and come back home and land where I took off from. So for example, I'll demo that right now. So it's over here, and I'm going to hit return to home, and what's going to do, it's going to confirm that it wants to return to home. It will ascend straight upwards to the altitude that it is currently set at, which is adjustable. So at this point I have it set pretty high so that I clear anything within the way. Once it hits its predetermined altitude, it'll make a beeline right over here to us and then drop straight back down where it will be able to land.
Watching this on YouTube, it looks like it's in the middle of a thunderstorm. Nope, just a cloudy day, folks.
And of course, all this data is available to me on the app. Right now, we're approaching 300 feet. We're about 110 feet from our home point, and it gives me the vertical speed and the horizontal speed as well.
Wow. This is very high.
Yeah.
So again, this is in a city park. A couple people looking on right now.
So I'm going to cancel that because I do have it set pretty high. At this point, I'm higher than I'd like to be. Basically, just flew as high as I can legally fly in this area. Because I'm licensed in Part 107, I have the ability to fly 400 feet over the nearest structure. In this case, these trees are probably approaching 75 to 80 feet at their peak. So I basically can go that plus 400 feet is my legal minimum. But what would happen right now, if the return to home was allowed to continue, it's going to come right back to where we are. It'll stop, and it'll descend straight down on our location. Typically, the accuracy on this model is within a few feet, but it's plenty enough to get you home no matter where it's
Once
at.
the drone gets about 50 to 75 feet away, it's quiet. You don't hear it. So if it is hovering above a property, you would never know it's there. Now it's coming down. You can hear it. That swarm of bees, that sound, that's the drone. It's coming straight down, maybe about 20 feet in front of us. You can hear it getting louder.
One of the neat things that this has is it's intelligent in the fact that it can fly itself. So we do have smart flight modes that we can use. And a good example of that would be what's called point of interest. The point of interest is basically going to keep us, in this case, as a center point. And I'm going to set the radius, is how far I want it to be away from us. And it'll simply go into an automated flight routine circling around us, keeping the camera pointed relatively on our position. And it will continue to do this until I tell it to stop. So I'm going to go into point of interest.
So right now what Preston is doing is creating a radius. And that is where the drone will stay. It will continue to circle.
Lighten up the camera a bit since it's really
And you can
dark.
imagine how valuable this would be for search and rescue. Imagine a 4-year-old boy with autism is lost. You can hover over an area and sweep that with video, and it can come down on a screen that you plug into, so you can actually be looking at a large monitor or have somebody watching that and say, hey, look right there, I see something, go back to that area.
Should be about right. So I'll fly over the top of us. I'm going to get up a bit higher so I can clear the trees, even though I don't think I'll be getting close to them. I'm going to look straight down on the camera.
So again, folks,
And
check
what
this
I'll
out on
see
YouTube. It is amazing.
right there.
It is amazing. I'm so surprised by the speed of
And
the drone. How
point of
fast it can
interest.
go up, how fast it goes forward, backwards. I didn't expect that.
Basically what I'm going to do is apply my position right now. I'm going to back away to set my radius.
Search and rescue is going to be a huge area for drones in the future. And it's probably going to replace search and rescue dogs in a number of cases. I just see it. It is such an incredible technology.
And I've got about a 57-foot radius right now, so it's pretty close. I'll hit start, and I will set the direction.
You can hook infrared up, so you could go and look for somebody who is hiding in a cornfield. That's an idea.
So it will operate in that 57-foot radius and take an image of what's below it.
Right.
Okay.
And imagine what this can do at night in finding heat signatures at night. And it's flying over swampy area, too, at times.
Speed it up a bit so it goes a little bit faster. Alright, so at this point it's flying around us. And it's doing a relatively perfect circle around us, keeping us in the center. So at this point it is basically flying itself. I don't have to do anything, it's keeping its course. And if something were to happen, it would be able to find its way back to home. Just come right back to where it was. If the battery is getting low, or we continue to ignore it and just let it fly until the batteries ran low, it would know to come back. So this is one of the nice things you can do with an intelligent drone like this, is we can set up these flight routines so we can get complex shots a lot easier than if we were manning it ourselves. In this case, point of interest, it's somewhat difficult in the sense that, you know, trying to keep an absolute perfect circle is not easy.
Right.
But if we're doing this, you know, a 500-foot radius and doing that full entire circle, it can do that with a high degree of accuracy while keeping the camera where
In a
it's
search and rescue situation, folks, this would be incredible to go up and get an image of what is happening below.
At this point, my battery is at 33%, so we're getting pretty low. Typically around 25 to 30% is when I want to start thinking about landing, and 10% is basically considered critical. So we don't want to go any lower than that. But again, when the battery warning goes off, we should be thinking about coming back in.
So fully charged, this will run for 10 to 15 minutes?
Right around there, yeah. It depends
Okay.
on how hard you push it. Right now we're just hovering, which is not using a lot. But we've been flying for quite a while. So at that point, that beeping right there is the battery warning. You can see that it's red. So if I were to continue to ignore this, what's going to happen is if we look up on the top menu here, this bar that is counting down, it actually gives you a time estimate of what it thinks it has.
Okay.
When it hits that yellow amount, there's also a tiny little H on the screen. That is when it deems it's necessary to return to home. So at that point, it'll say returning to home. It gives you the option to cancel it. But if we ignore that, it's going to return to home on its own and land itself. So you really can't run it out of power and cause an issue that way so long as you are paying attention to what's happening.
So when we think about a drone and expending the battery, it returns to home, and then we can replace the battery and quickly get that drone back in service.
Is ignoring the compass and the GPS, which is basically what will happen in the event of a compass error or some other kind of interference that's actually affecting that system from working properly, and we'll see the effects of that.
So GPS, I mean, losing contact with the satellite system up above, not with a cellular system.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
it's a satellite, it's referencing the signal from the satellites in order to calculate its position. Typically when we lose GPS, it's not, most of the time it's not a result of the GPS receiver itself, it's that the compass is having an issue, and the GPS can't work without the compass working properly.
Okay.
So you could lose GPS if you're flying underneath a structure like a bridge maybe, or you're inside a building, so that will affect it. But more often than not, it's a compass issue, and the compass is very sensitive to anything metallic. So if you're by a vehicle, you have your cell phone in your pocket, and that's emitting basically a magnetic field, that can affect it. Even if you calibrate a compass before you fly and you're standing over the top of a sewer drain, maybe that's underneath the ground that you couldn't see, that could affect your calibration, which will affect how it works. So there's a whole safety aspect and understanding of how it works so that you don't have an issue with that system, because that's critical to the way that it flies.
So obviously power lines, anything metallic, you want to be very aware of that in the environment.
So at this point, I don't need to calibrate the compass again because we are still here on the same day. We haven't changed locations. We're not miles away. Basically, there's no reason to recalibrate since our last calibration in this location was good.
So this comes into a misconception. I think people think, well, cellular goes down, then GPS goes down. But if you're operating a drone, for example, in a rescue, if cellular went down, that doesn't impact you.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with what this is operating on. This is pulling the signal literally from the satellites. They're talking to each other in a sense that they, the calculations are being made on that end of it. So it's literally between those two. And the communication of this and everything I'm seeing is directly through the aircraft and the controller. It's its own system, so nothing externally except for a very high amount of interference would affect what I'm seeing right here. So I'll go ahead and take off.
The home point has been taken.
You'll notice when I started up the motors, it said go home point has been recorded. So that's what it does when I start the motors. It's taking that spot as the home point. I can update the home point manually if I wanted to, but in this case there's no reason to. That was good enough. So what can happen though, if we were out here flying and we encountered a compass error, we're going to lose GPS assistance and we're going to lose the compass assistance. So right now, because we're in GPS, what's going to happen, let's say I go forward and all my hands on the sticks, it breaks. So it stops and it holds its position. I'll do it again going this way. And it stops. Same thing when I'm changing direction. You can see that the aircraft is going to go in that direction. It's trying to go where I'm telling it to go, and the GPS is allowing it to go. So let's say we had a compass error or we lost GPS for some reason, as a pilot, we need to know how to correct that situation. So at this point, I'm taking it out of GPS mode. You see the wind is starting to affect it. And if I go forward and then the opposite sticks, you can see that it drifts a lot more. There's no position hold. At this point, it's just floating away on its own. So for a new pilot, this can be pretty scary. You're not sure what to
Right.
do right now.
It's like, well, my drone's gone.
It's going away. Basically, I am rolling with the wind, and I have no way to stop the position that I'm in right now. And it's actually going pretty good, and we only have a very light breeze today. We'll put it back in GPS mode to regain our control. But the fact is, as good as the systems are, they do have their issues once in a while, and it's important to practice that. If you're owning a piece of equipment like this, you need to know how to use it in all of the modes, because when something goes wrong, that particular mode right there is what you'll have to bring it back in. So it's very important to understand what you're using and basically how to handle problems when they come in. They're not terribly likely. It is very reliable, but they do happen.
So again, GPS failure is likely not due to a satellite failure. It's due to the compass and the
Right.
ability to connect with the satellite from the device.
Yeah, or there's a view problem, like I said, underneath the structure.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see, what should we talk about here? Well, one thing I'd like to point out on this particular model is that, actually I'll have to come down a bit for that. The ability to get really complex shots is just so much easier than it used to be. So right now, when I turn the aircraft, the camera's going with it. This is basically what's called like the follow mode. So where I'm pointing the aircraft is also where the camera's going. But this one has the ability to do a free mode as well. You can see in the free mode, I can do what I want with the aircraft, and our camera is still positioned where we need it to be. So this is great because I could fly the aircraft in line of sight, and I can have a second person working the camera, and it doesn't matter how much I move this while I'm rocking it or twisting, we can keep that lock right on us. So that's how they're getting these really incredible shots. It's that easy, so to speak.
Amazing.
I can be basically completely backwards and it's still looking right at us. Put it back in the follow mode, and now I have it back the way that it was before. I was just flying with it normally.
A huge appreciation to Preston Rice for demonstrating the drone possibilities as far as search and rescue. Now again, folks, go to YouTube and check this out. He took the drone and flew it over a field and then into kind of a swampy area, even a little bit of a brushy, wooded area. And think of trying to take a rescue search dog back there. You know, it would take time, even if you're walking through this murky, swampy area, yet you can get it with a drone in the matter of, I think we counted down like 9 or 10 seconds to get, 1,000, 2,000 feet out and start to do the search. Just absolutely amazing. So thank you again to Preston Rice, and you can learn more about Preston. Just go online and do a search for Madison Area Drone Service. Madison Area Drone Service. He does residential, commercial, agriculture, special operations, repairs, drones. Preston is phenomenal. I am going to be doing an upgrade of my audio equipment for field interviews, and definitely want to have Preston on again later on, so we can do another demonstration of a field rescue. I think I'm going to hide something a few blocks away, and then we'll do a search for it. Although I don't want to walk out in the night, swamp, and get wood ticks and whatever, but hey, anything for the show, right? Thank you to John Grant and the 405 Media for airing the Safety Doc podcast. Thank you for listening to the show. And I do know the audio is a little a little challenging in some of these field episodes. So I am working to improve that, and I promise you that we'll continue to sharply improve in the near future. Again, thank you for listening to the Safety Doc Podcast, and hey, stay safe, everybody.